Hey guys, it's me, Daniel with Socratic Hobbits. On this episode, Kyle and I talk about Instagram, habits, predestination, and it's a little bit more like some of our older episodes, but still helpful, we hope. Thanks for listening. Yeah. Why are you? Were you, not sleeping because you were just goofing off, or were you burning both ends of the candle?
Not exactly. It's more just like doing stuff in the evenings, like jujitsu and mostly other stuff like that. Trying to do research on different stocks and that sort of thing.
There's an Excel dashboard you can download that does a really good job of tracking all of your stocks if you want. If you have Office 365, you have to have Office 365, but it does a really nice job of data visualization, and it pulls in live data, and then you can also include specifically your transactions, and see how they're doing over the last period of time. Minda Tracy is, I think a while ago I was talking to you about like seeing people who really know what they're doing with Excel. Minda Tracy is one of those people. So I watch a lot of her training videos.
Okay.
And or have been recently when I've been getting into data visualization. I think it's pretty exciting, interesting stuff. But anyway, so she had produced a video explaining how to make it, but you can also, as part of that, just download what she made. Yeah. Is that something that interests you, or no, not really?
I'm more trying to understand. I mean, that could be. I'm trying to understand what I should be looking for, I guess. It's maybe a better trying to spin up my knowledge on what's signal and what's noise and how to know or how to discern that.
Yeah. Are you reading anything related to that?
Yeah, I'm reading a book. I think it's just called like How to Make Money in the Stock Market or some really cheesy title like that.
Nice. I mean, at least it's getting to the point.
It's very to the point. And I mean, so far what I've read in it makes good it's good common sense. Some of the stuff I'm not sure, like a lot of things he says make sense and seems like good advice. But then sometimes he'll kind of throw something out and it seems to be more opinion than actually based on something, just sort of like anecdotal evidence.
That's interesting. So can you give an example? Or
yeah, so he was talking about like how to tell when the market has peaked, and he was showing these graphs, and basically he was saying if you see a lot of volume, so a lot of trades happening and not a lot of price movement, that tells you that there is likely going to be a downturn, which I see what he's saying, but I have to think that there are, and this kind of comes back to research that I need to do, but like he threw out a bunch of data points that supported his thesis, but then I have to think that there are also plenty of situations when there's a lot of activity that it stays kind of stagnant and then it keeps on going up after that for a significant amount of time.
So you would just need to find some situations where there was a lot of trade and not a lot of price movement, and then an uptick.
Exactly.
I guess that would be true even if it was in a trough.
Or if I don't see that at all, then that gives more credence to what he's saying. But I don't know at this point.
Yeah. Oh, that's something interesting. Something else that's interesting is the function in Excel in that spreadsheet. Like one of the functions is volume.
Yeah.
Of stocks, because it's like you can basically any data point that you could pull while looking at
where does it pull it from?
Magic, I think. I don't know. I mean, it's from, you can choose which stock exchange, and then
well, normally it's like some sort of financial services provider who actually aggregates all that information.
It's a totally like Microsoft function. Like you don't have to put in a website. You can't choose a different data source.
Interesting.
So I don't know.
I mean, that simplifies it, right?
It does simplify it.
Can you get I guess actually I just want to like look it up now.
You want to look it up right this second? You don't want to talk about habituation and how to get good at things?
I just want to make sure I have a tab so that I can come back. So what's the service called? The Excel thing?
I will send you a link. How's that?
Oh, how about you do that? That'll work too.
I'll send you a link to the YouTube video and I'll put it in the show notes. That's the other thing that I've done with the recent episodes is that I have all of the links together. I even used affiliate links.
Nice.
So you and I are going to boy, this is going to take off, man.
I think I've put 2 or 3 affiliate links on my blog.
Nice. How rich are you from that?
I'm poorer in time.
Oh, okay. David, one of the Davids asked me about my hat because he was anyway, and then I sent him an affiliate link because I had just done the ones for the blog.
Oh, nice.
Oh, sure, why not?
Yeah, totally.
If you're listening to this, David, and you bought that hat,
thank you.
Thanks. Let's talk about our question, trying to figure that out, because that's something that we haven't done. That's all been offline. And the Socratic part of it of our name is essentially coming up with a question, and we haven't really modeled that or even really like talked about how we come up with questions. Because we had discussed talking about how much inflation has affected or potentially could affect, which I mean might be interesting to talk about, but I just don't know enough at this point to really do anything other than speculate and basically.
Well, I mean, you're kind of getting into how we decide about what to talk about, what questions to answer, and one of those rubrics is what do we feel like we've spent enough time looking into that we can actually provide some sort of insight or analysis on the question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think opinions are not
what we're looking for on this podcast.
Not what you and I, ideally. I think that unfounded opinions, especially, if we've had some experience or hopefully have spent some time really thinking through, chewing on information, then it's helpful or at least has the potential to be helpful. But straight opinions with no basis is essentially us parroting other things that we've heard or read. And a while back, I'd been reading a book called How to Read a Book by Mortimer Adler. Anyway, and he talked about the 4 different levels of reading, and the last one is summarizing. And it's essentially like you're owning a subject. And I don't think that you and I'm sure that we have gotten outside of that realm in our conversations and in the things that we talk about and say our opinions, but we don't, we don't talk about news on this podcast because it's not something that we own in any way or have any kind of right to. And I don't know. Sorry.
Maybe this would be another podcast episode, but there's a certain side of me that I think both of us have modeled this in our lives to a certain degree where we don't really pay super close attention to the news and have sought to decrease that potential of noise and distraction from our lives and have seen benefits, I would argue, by doing that.
Yeah. What do you think some of the benefits are for you for cutting out news, which I think maybe you've been more successful at, especially recently?
Well, one of the a couple things that come to mind are just distraction and distress. So you have the distraction that comes from always having a new thing pop up in front of me or pop up in front of anyone. And then there's the energy that goes into evaluating that thing. And especially as headlines have become more and more, I guess, gamified to try and get people's engagement and drive eyeballs to a page, to get enough eyeballs on a page to get payouts from different advertisers. It has made information it has turned information into junk food when it comes to the news. And so there's no for probably, I'd say at least 95% of what goes as news today, it's junk food. There's no substantial benefit to it. And I've just seen too many situations where I've seen a link or a headline on Facebook, or a friend has sent me something. The article basically took a few quotes, put them out of context, created a headline out of the out of context idea, and I can send them the link to the actual original statements, and you can see you can see what those statements are, and you can see how someone could take them out of context if they were trying to drive eyeballs, not to try and truly summarize what the person was trying to say.
Yeah. So my wife recently, I didn't really know Instagram could be used the way that my wife does, but she uses it to find and read really interesting stuff by some of the people that she follows. She did tell me something that's a little interesting that I'll get to in a minute later. But one of the things that was mentioned, there's someone she follows is like tries as hard as they possibly can to be unbiased. And she has enough people scream at her from the left and from the right that she feels like she's doing an okay job. One of the things that this person shared was a summary of what is news events, what is opinion, what is analysis. And kind of what you were getting at earlier is that 95% of the stuff falls into that middle category. It's not news. It is not here's what happened. It is opinions about things that happened.
Yep.
And yeah, that's part of why I have enjoyed the Dispatch so much. It is a lot of analysis and not as much news. But I think some of the things that you have expressed about sensationalism, I've gotten a lot of those benefits from not being on social media. And I don't know, the more like I hear from different people at different times, basically complaints about being on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter. And I just have never been like, I've never really heard anybody extol the benefits of them.
Right.
With a handful of exceptions, like being connected to, like knowing when a party or when an event is happening, or they
Selling
seem
stuff.
Yeah. I know. Like my wife has a few times been like, "Oh, this person's gotten. I cannot like. They've invited me now to this multi-level marketing thing." Yeah, I don't know. And then another.
I thought you were going to say, "Oh, this person has invited me to a wedding that happened 3 months ago."
No, this isn't one of those situations. That's like one of two times in my life that I really wished that I had social media. I missed a good friend's wedding and didn't really know about it until I was really actually.
You didn't know that you were invited.
I didn't know that I was invited. And I found out that some other people were going, and that was basically how I found out about it. They're like, "We're going to this wedding this weekend," and I was like, "Oh, I guess I thought we were closer. I guess not." And that was just kind of like it had been really deflating. And then I found out that I was invited, but it was far enough away, and there was no way it was going to work. Anyway, but
aside from those 2% of cases,
you could have called me Matt. Anyway, yeah. Aside from, and then there was another. I don't remember what the other situation was. It wasn't as a big a deal as that.
But it is weird thinking about how the value I primarily see in Facebook or in Instagram, which is interesting to me because especially for fitness type things, Instagram does seem to be the place most people go for promoting those kinds of brands. And with jiu-jitsu or with the fitness blog that I write on every couple of weeks, it's maybe a better venue actually than Facebook. But I was able to link WordPress to Facebook so I can just directly post to my page on Facebook from WordPress without getting onto Facebook. So it's, if I was on Instagram, maybe there's a plugin that would allow me to do that. There probably is a plugin.
They are owned by the same company, and they have worked on getting them more and more integrated so that they can't be broken up.
Yeah. So
yeah,
I'm sure there'd be a way for me to post to Instagram in a similar manner. But
yeah,
it was interesting to me to hear that your wife has found some value from Instagram.
Yeah.
It almost sounds like using it like Twitter, or like Twitter was intended.
Yeah, potentially. Mostly what she does on there is pictures, right? Because that's what Instagram is basically for.
Right.
But she doesn't follow, like she's really into plants. I don't know if you knew that. And so there's a couple of like designers that she really likes, and and post stuff related to that. And as she's doing projects around the house, which she's been getting into for about maybe the last 3 months, she's been posting on that as well and getting a lot of interaction. I had an Instagram for like, I don't know, a while where I used it and was trying to engage with it, try to get followers, and I like didn't stay the course. It was like I was not getting enough value out of it, and she has a lot of followers, like way more than I ever did, and is not really trying for that, which is, I don't know, is pretty cool that people are interested in what she's doing. Yeah.
So what would be the theme be, or the, I guess, thought behind her page, or not page, but feed?
I don't know.
If you summarized it.
No, that's it. I don't know how to do that. Okay. I don't know how to do that for an Instagram. I mean, she posts a lot of plant stuff. She posts a lot of DIY stuff, and we'll repost other stuff. She also finds our cats hilarious and sometimes posts stuff about them. I would say most of it's DIY, to be honest. Okay. Most of the stuff that I see her do regularly, even the stuff related to plants, has been kind of tangential or adjacent to building out her office and having our office, or like the craft room space, the way that she wants it. And she is slowed down a little bit on that. She'd taken some time off during December to work on that, and hasn't been able to continue at that pace.
One of the things I've been curious about with Instagram is how do you use it and yet still stay engaged in the activity that you're doing?
Like for stories and stuff. By the way, I will say this is turning into one of our older podcasts when we are not very focused, which is okay.
It's true. Well, I think we can salvage it. But
okay, so the way that you would stay focused on something that you're doing is you are not Instagramming the entire time that you are.
Do you plan when you're going to Instagram?
I mean, she does. Okay. I don't use Instagram. So
she'll set something up and then take a video or a photo and then write about it and then go on with the rest of the stuff.
Yeah, so stories. It's very like she'll take, the way that stories work is you're like filming, and you can film up to like 10 seconds, and then you edit them together, you string them together later, and then you can add stickers and words on the page to kind of explain what's going on, or you can just mic over it.
I don't know how much you've talked to her about this, but has she developed a routine for making sure that she's mostly working on the actual DIY plant stuff, and then
no, I mean, she just kind of does what she wants to, and it works out fine. But like, she's posted about she will spend more than an hour watering and taking care of all the plants on Saturday, and which this gives her joy. I have no idea why. It doesn't make any sense to me, but that's okay.
Or does she listen to things while she's doing it, or is it just watering?
Just watering. But she waters, she fertilizes, she clips leaves, she has to spray and then dry out her air plants. She checks on the soil for a lot of different plants. She's got an app that helps her to make sure that she's got them all on the correct watering schedule, because they're plants from different places. And she's posted about all of that, but she doesn't usually, because it needs to be done every week, and that would be kind of boring. I mean, she might post a little bit from it, especially if a new leaf or something's flowering, or like when she put little Christmas lights on our fiddle leaf fig. I think that probably got into Instagram. And she got some plants for Christmas, and so I'm sure that went in there. And she doesn't listen to our podcast, so I can say, but for Valentine's Day, I got her a new pretty watering can. So hopefully she likes that. And even if she did listen to it, I think Valentine's Day is before we'll post this. So
yeah, you're probably okay.
Probably okay. Yeah. So
I guess what I was thinking of is it seems like she's developing an identity around this, or maybe she already has an identity where she loves to grow plants and loves that experience.
Definitely.
And it's led to certain reinforced behaviors, which another term for reinforced behavior is a habit. And one of the questions we had discussed in text discussing on this podcast was what are good ways to develop those reinforced behaviors or habits.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's some valuable lessons we can draw out of what your wife has experienced with plants. I don't know if you know how long she's been interested in
Her interest has probably been quite a while.
an active engagement.
And active engagement is about a year.
Okay.
So that happened. I don't know if you recall what happened about 11 months ago or so.
Mm-hmm.
It was the start of this pandemic, and we had a lot more time at home. And she had been interested, and she'd seen, it was like we had pots for stuff, and she's always been really interested in doing stuff outside, and then like in our yard. But
it's February, and it's kind of dreary outside in the home.
Yeah, and so she really liked the houseplants that we had, but then over the last year, we went from 10 plants ish to like 50.
Okay.
So, which is why it takes her so long. It's not like each one takes very long to handle each week or every other week. But when you have that many,
there's a need to have a habit.
Yeah. I mean, they would just die, right?
Yeah. But the plant most plants would give you a sense of when they're in distress before they're actually dead. And so you do get that there's a visual feedback loop there.
Yeah, if you're looking at them. So I have a plant which you and me will see, but no one else will, that my wife gave me. To me, it looks distressed. And I brought it to her and said, "Dear, can I give this back to you? Like, you take care of it." And she was like, "No, it's your plant. And also, it's fine. It's not unhappy at all. Like, feel this, look at the soil. It's fine." And I'm like, all right, I guess I'll keep trying to take care of it. But I'm not in my office every day because I go to work. Whereas she works from home or from her, like she probably works from home at least 15 to 20 hours a week, probably more. But yeah, so she's around the house plants much more. So yeah, and I think
she's constantly in it.
Yeah, well, and because they interest her, she's literally like looking at them. Whereas me, they're very much a background thing. They're not, I've never taken care of our houseplants, except, well, I mean, if she asks me to water something.
Under duress.
Yeah, not duress. But if she asks me to water something, it's very much her, like, she's the boss when it comes to the plants. Like, she's the one who is thinking about their watering schedule. I have never thought that plant looks like it needs water. The closest I've gotten to that is that plant looks dead. Like, that's the closest there. But I think one of the reasons, and I've probably said this here before, but one of the reasons that she is so consistent is because they make her happy. And
yeah, you mentioned that interest that she had before this even started. Yeah,
but one of the reasons that it's easy to habituate to something that you like is because our brains prefer to be happy over being sad. And, I don't know why that plants in particular make her happy, but they do. And so when she thinks about taking care of them, then she gets a little something from that. So if you're trying to do something that makes you unhappy, then you either have to like reframe that or change it in such a way. So if you think about exercising and it makes you want to throw up or, whatever, it just makes you unhappy because you feel guilty about it. That's probably true for a lot of people. You're like, I really should work out. And if you ever find yourself saying you should do something, then that sometimes it can be a red flag. Then, but if you find you're like, oh, I should work out, it's like, well, I just want to be healthy. And the idea of putting on shorts and going for a run and like running shoes and, being winded and out of breath, it's like, well, maybe you should find something that, like, it would be a lot easier if you were going to do something that got you that benefit and didn't make you feel terrible. So you actually get most of the benefit or all of the benefit of running if you walk the same distance. It takes longer, but that's something that I've found. If you were to walk for 5 miles, and it makes sense logically.
As far as health goes, yes.
As far as health goes, you don't get as fast. Like,
Right.
what do you mean?
Yeah, exactly what you're saying. Your fitness will be developed for walking, not for running,
Mm-hmm.
but your health will be the same.
Yeah, well, and it makes sense. Let's say that you're trying to burn a certain amount of calories because you prefer to be at a certain weight. You're moving the same mass, the same distance,
Mhm.
and it just is taking longer.
Well, okay, I don't think it's exactly the same because,
No, it's not exactly the same. One of them you're running, and the other you're walking.
well, and running creates higher forces, which means your muscles have to work harder.
Yeah, but you also, I mean, the cost with that though is joint health, right? Like you can, depending on how much you run, or if you're 400 pounds, you're going to have significant cost to your joints as opposed to walking, which is very low impact.
Well, if you're 400 pounds, walking is high impact, but
That depends on how tall
I
you are,
see your
Kyle.
point.
Yeah, okay. You're definitely more into fitness and health than I am, but I just,
Because I enjoy it and it
yeah,
interests me. One of the things I wanted to circle back, there are a couple things in what you just said there that I want to circle back to. One is the happiness versus sadness, and I was wondering, do you think it's based on what you've read, especially in I think it was Tiny Habits? Do you
yeah.
think it's happiness versus sadness, or comfort versus discomfort, or would you even try and parse it?
I think it's specifically happiness and sadness because it's a dopamine thing. Your brain rewards itself essentially
Okay,
when you do things that make you happy. And so then,
that actually makes more sense because if you think about Screwtape Letters, what we just went over the book recently,
mhm,
Screwtape is instructing Wormwood to try and get the patient to basically go through life comfortable but never happy.
mhm.
He fritters away his time staring into the fire. He's comfortable, but he's not happy.
Yeah, I
And
think that might
so,
be a poor example, but
okay,
for C.S. Lewis anyway. Actually, earlier you were talking about sensational headlines, and at one point I had seen C.S. Lewis denies God on a YouTube thing, and I was like, what? And so I watched it, and it was not C.S. Lewis, and it was nonsensical, but it got me to click.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so
we've all
anyway,
done that.
yeah, but I think over the last couple weeks or last week or two, my wife and I recently got a fireplace, and
So it's all good to go.
it's good to go. Yeah, we've been using it. It's pretty great, especially when it's freezing outside. It does a good job of heating up the space.
Nice.
But I have really enjoyed kind of letting my mind wander and think. It's more intentional than just sitting in front of a fire and doing nothing. Although that is kind of what it looks like. But yeah, I mean I see your point anyway of being comfortable but not happy.
Mhm.
Part of why that is, part of why, celebrating or figuring out a way to frame something that you want to do in a way that makes you happy is when you think of it, instead of feeling this guilt or frustration or whatever, even while you're just thinking about doing it, you get a small dose of what that is. And if it's bad or good, your brain doesn't want to be sad. So your brain will literally not let you remember things that you don't want to do because it gets zero benefit from the thing. And where that doesn't work perfectly is when you are more afraid of the cost of not doing something. So I really need to file my taxes. I don't feel happy when I think about that, but I care about not. I get enough of a punishment that it kind of, I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. If we can go back to the other thing you said that I thought would be really helpful to discuss was you mentioned there's a time when a red flag should go off in our minds when we say I should do something, like I should file my tax, or I should work out,
Mhm.
or I
Yeah, I heard a pastor once say, and you have to say it really slowly, but don't shit all over yourself.
mhm.
And it's just this guilt that we kind of carry, right? This idea, it's being essentially judged by an ideal that we have for ourselves or that has been given to us by others, or like people who were important growing up, so our parents or specific teachers or whatever. Ideals of what we think a good Christian should be, ideals of what a husband, a father, a wife, a mother, like I'm not doing XYZ. And then you're not thinking about, like, not that your happiness is the most important thing, but your other people's ideas of what a good version of you is probably not correct 100% of the time. Maybe not most of the time. I don't know.
Right. And that's an important distinction to make, is we aren't saying don't aspire to an ideal. We're saying don't let regret drive aspiration to an ideal,
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, like
or
another,
fear drive that
sure.
aspiration.
Yeah. Being driven by fear as opposed to desire. Like, instead of thinking about all the things you don't want to do, think about the things you do want.
I
Or
mean, with
like,
exercise, you gave a really good example of that, where it's don't think about the discomfort that comes with exercise, pain, and so on, but instead think about the health, the ability that does come from exercise. And so reframing the whole situation.
godliness is a bad goal.
You're going to really have to unpack that.
Yeah. I figured with you I would. I want you to pick it apart, but the idea is this. When you are desiring to be godly, it is a desire, or it can be a desire, to be righteous in and of yourself. And
so this is already sounding like an argument of definition.
Perhaps. So let me retry. All right. So your goal should not be to be godly. Your goal should be to be with God, like to know God. And maybe to know is to, we saw him, and then what is it? We beheld his glory, and like from glory to shoot. It's like you can only be like God if you truly see him as he is. And so when I say godliness, I guess what I probably mean is to act rightly.
Goodliness.
And what's that?
Confusing godliness with goodliness.
I guess. Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, godliness, even just trying to be like God without knowing him.
And I think that's a really key part of this whole thing. Is I think there are a lot of wise people on the side of we shouldn't try and be godly apart from God. Well, we can't.
Right.
And it is, I think what you're getting at, there's a temptation in our own hearts to pursue righteousness on our own merit. And so we're like Adam and Eve, we're usurping God's place and being godly in the sense that we are setting ourselves up as God, which is very different than being godly in the sense of seeking to imitate God as he is good.
Yeah, I think part of why that crystallized in that way for me is that over the last 3 years, I have desired to be rid of some very specific things.
Right.
And to act in very specific ways. And even like in my view of like racism as a thing, and how I am tired of seeing people be racist and then call it something else. And I work in a gruff industry, and people say what they think, and just is what it is, man. But and maybe even other, if you want to not call it, like if you want to be more basically, people hate and then say it's not that, or it's okay, or it's good. And then for me to see that in myself, and I desperately don't want to hate, and then I see it crop up again. And like, I mean, to give a small example, I got really angry about a week ago at work, and nobody at work would say that they saw anything that was inappropriate, or saw me respond in a way or do anything. But I knew my heart, and I just thought I was justified because I did. And if you have a cup on a table filled with water, and then you knock it over, and out comes salt water, it wasn't knocking it over that made the salt water already in the cup. Right. So clearly what was, I got upset, I got pushed over, and what was in there wasn't godliness. And then, to desire that I respond in a different way for my reputation, for really any reason other than like, Jesus, I just want to be with you.
I want to glorify your name.
Yeah.
which is the reason Jesus came to earth, was to glorify the name of the Father.
Mhm.
And I think as we think about habits, one of the things James Clear brought up is the importance of thinking about it as an identity, not as a goal.
Mhm.
That's
So
one
like
of the
think of an aspiration, not a specific outcome.
Mhm.
Okay, keep going. Sorry.
And that's one of the beautiful things about Christianity, is the core idea that we are not striving to meet a certain set of ideals and then we achieve enlightenment. We are seeking, I mean, you mentioned this earlier, we're seeking to know God, we're seeking to know our Creator, and not just know and understand, but to love and bring glory to God. And all of our that has downstream effects on the rest of our lives when we live it, putting God as the foundation and the pinnacle, depending on how you want to build your metaphor.
Yeah, absolutely. That's interesting. It's often hard to kind of marry up habits and Christianity because it feels like I mean, based on what I see in the Bible, Christianity is very much a Jesus did this for me, and that's true for salvation and
It's true for justification.
justification, and I think for sanctification as well. Kind of, I don't know. That's the thing, is that like why would it be significantly different? But then it feels like, all of the work out your salvation with fear and trembling.
For it is God who works in you both to will and to do for his good pleasure.
Yeah. I like that you quoted the last half of that too.
But it's so crucial to have both of those halves. Like, we are doing the work and God is working through us. So you're not wrong to say that God is doing sanctification.
Yeah.
It's just that it's not right to say that we get to coast.
Yeah, and I don't think that
I don't think you were saying that. I'm just making it
clear.
it
extra clear. Sure.
Yeah, because I think it is important to be clear. Because I think at times in the church, we as Christians have fallen into that trap. Even in my own life, at times fallen into that trap of going, well, God did it, so it's done, and I'm going to kind of focus on whatever I want to focus on because I don't really need. It's like I've delegated that part of my life, and I don't get to delegate that. I'm not called to delegate my sanctification.
Yeah, that calling is a pretty important piece, because you say that you believe the Bible and that it's true, and that like why it would be really easy, based on some beliefs, some doctrines that people have, that there's nothing that I could say or do that would change my standing with God. Right? It's totally him, and I think I think that's true, but like God also said that it's our responsibility. So with the same like power and authority that he declared for light to exist, like he also said that my choices matter, and so they matter regardless of whether I can reason it out. And so like what if everything that results from my choices is God's doing, which is a difficult doctrine, and you could maybe
but it is true. Like, I just read a proverb that talked about how God has
is it 1611?
Yeah. He's made everything, even the wicked, for the day of trouble.
I don't think
Maybe it's not 1611, but
1611 is, I think, something to the effect of a man decides which way he's going to go, but the Lord directs his path.
Okay, so that's a different one. This one is God has created all things, even the wicked, for the. I can't remember the first part exactly, but the second part is even the wicked for the day of trouble.
And then when he's talking about the lake of fire in Revelation, he says which was designed for the devil and his angels.
And then in Matthew talks about all who do not worship God will be put there with the devil.
I know, but it's like it wasn't designed for them. Like the lake of fire wasn't, like he specifically marks it out as being created for the devil and its angels.
Oh, in Revelation.
In Revelation, yeah. I'm not saying that people don't go there who reject God. But it's just hard. They're hard doctrines. Good and hard.
I think the blessing of our understanding of God's sovereignty is we don't know who he has sovereignly chosen for which path.
Yeah. But I think in a lot of ways, like, I know God's called me, and people who profess, I just trust that he's called them as well. I don't think about I don't think about other people's salvation a whole lot. Like, if they profess, I don't think like, oh, did God call them? Even if, like, I guess you can get into like between free will people and.
That's not where I was going.
Oh, where were you going?
What I was thinking about was we do have a responsibility to our brothers and sisters in Christ that when they have made profession, when they have been baptized, they have been identified as being in Christ. And so if we see behavior that is not in keeping with Christ, we don't ask them, are you a Christian? We have a sibling reaction of, why are you not?
It's kind of like with Paul with Peter. You're not acting in line with the gospel.
Yeah, why aren't you acting in line with the mark of your family? Like your family line says you should be doing this, but you're doing this thing that's part of a different family line. And you need to figure out whatever it is that is making it look like you're acting like you're part of this other family line, because that's not who God says you are. Now, it may be in time that they persist in that, and that's when that's why Paul wrote about excommunication. Is it's supposed to be that really strong knock on the side of the head, that then getting back to habits. You're in this community, you have this identity as being part of this community, and you're being put out of the community. And if you really are part of the community, being put out of the community is going to be a terrible experience, and it's going to be it is a loving experience in the midst of that terrible event, because it is meant to remind you of the blessing and joy that was part of being part of the people of God, and being in fellowship with them, and having those routines that helped anchor that knowledge and understanding, and that you, Lord willing, love, and you, that memory of that and the emptiness that's in your life as a result of being put out from that will bring you back into fellowship and remind you of what your true identity is.
Yeah. So you would say that as designed in the Bible, excommunication is hopefully a temporary thing, and not like the Catholic Church used it in the Dark Ages or whenever they did that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's just a way for political power.
Yeah. Whatever it was.
I mean, we're humans. We can definitely. I mean, people use the Bible to aid and abet Southern slavery. So we can do all sorts of twisted things with God's proof texting God's word. Satan's quoted the Bible.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's
to get Jesus to worship him.
Yeah, which is clearly not in the Bible. Yeah, so we talked about habits and emotions, being happy. Is there anything that you wanted to add to that? Or?
Well, one of the things that I was thinking of when I was talking about excommunication was the benefit of accountability and the benefit of a community of people who are pursuing the same things, the same identity that is found, that results in the habits you want to develop, and how crucial, how wonderfully beneficial that can be. I was thinking that on kind of a lower level, having the jiu-jitsu group that meets regularly now, all those guys, it's a positive feedback loop where the more someone comes, the more they feel part of the group, the more they want to come again and continue to be part of the group, the more you learn. And then there's the aspect, so that's the community aspect. And then there's the knowledge aspect where the more you learn, the more, or knowledge / happiness aspect, the more you learn, the more fun it gets, the more you want to come back, and you have that positive feedback loop going on there. The more you understand about, going back to the church, the more you know about God and the Bible, and as your love for him grows, your love for him, your desire to know more grows, so your love for him grows. And that takes, so both growing in knowledge causes a growth in love and a strengthening of habits, and pursuing that love and interest in a community of like-minded individuals. As far as not 100% like-minded, that would be very boring, but as far as the ultimate pursuit of that community goes, being like-minded is really beneficial.
Yeah. So if you want to build habits, to sum up, like based on what you just kind of talked about, find people who want some of the same things, maybe not exactly the same things, but some of the same things, and then figure out a path forward. Is it?
And I could actually see that being part of what's contributed to the Instagram account for your wife, where she's found other people who are interested in the same thing she is, and some of them are probably a little bit further than she is. Some of them are behind.
Did you want to try to sum up at the end there, or no?
I mean, I feel like what I said about the church kind of sums up my thoughts on habits and identity.
Yeah. Okay. No, I think that's an interesting train of thought there. Are you excited about next week?
Yeah, I think that'll be fun.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to be pretty disciplined. Well, I don't know.
I don't either.
I was gonna say we're gonna have to be disciplined to keep it on track, but on the other hand.
Hey guys, it's Daniel again. I just want to say thank you for listening to the episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope it was helpful. Our music today was by the band Explore, and they have been doing our music basically the entire time. And Clyde, Robbie, I'm really sorry that we haven't been crediting you up to this point. Please forgive us. If you guys enjoyed the episode, why don't you make your bed? Like, you're an adult. Just make your bed and then put a mint on it. You'll enjoy it.
Hello? I declined your call, dear. I'm just still recording with Kyle. Can I call you back in 5?
Hi.
Kyle says hello.